everyone, and welcome to TableTakes. My name is Bonsai. I'm here with Derek, Emma, Christian, and special guest, Hawke. Thank you guys so much for joining us. As you can see, we're getting quite cozy here at TableTakes. Cozy.
Is it because the set's cold? You're just huddling together for warmth?
Yeah, body heat is very important.
It's
dark
very,
side.
very dark.
We're in the midst of 40 days of rain here in Seattle.
Oh,
At
yes,
least that's what it feels like.
The rain has cometh, and some areas in Seattle or around Seattle area has been flooded.
Now, basically everything around my house, every town or anything touching the town that I live in, completely flooded.
Really?
Yeah.
So you are the Ark.
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
in the arc.
I think I just live on a hill or something.
Based on the fog around my house, the only thing I can presume is the flooding at my level is just in the air.
The flood is coming. I just got like random bouts of snow in my area. But besides the snow and flooding and apocalypse happening over here, guess what happened? We're going to go ahead and start the day off with some exciting news in some ways, not really. More of like just
It's scandal, and therefore
scandalous.
I am interested.
Scandalous.
Schadenfreude.
I
Yes.
do love me some scandal.
Scandal. So today's scandal is basically, I don't know if you've been hearing around Golden Bell Studios. They are a board game publisher, like going around Kickstarter. Basically, they've been banned from Kickstarter. Long story short, they did some very shady things targeting first-time developers and basically being bullies to people on Kickstarter and basically victimizing all the designers that they worked with. And yeah, bad news. And I'm, one of the of course, Christian, you had more to say about this as well.
Oh, I just think they're giant douche nozzles. No, honestly, I've worked with a lot of Kickstarters, and I've heard about the stuff that they have done, and it's similar to something that somebody else pulled a few years back, except it wasn't a whole company doing it. It was really just one guy. I'm guessing deep in my heart that this guy is probably involved with that studio now, just because it's the same kind of crap that was happening before, and it really bothers me.
Yeah. Also, being in the indie game design community, I've seen the names circulated around, and people have warned each other. And the ban is good because in the communities, it's a whisper network, right? Like you have to wait for someone to tell you that they're bad, and you might not be part of that network if you're a beginner. So you just never hear about it. But
So what did they do exactly? What were they suspended for?
So what they were suspended for specifically, they were a company that came around 2007, and like they said, not a lot of people knew about them. They slowly built up a reputation, but within that year, they approached designers and promised them a Cinderella story, like saying, "Oh, if you just sign off like either the money or the rights to this, we will take care of your Kickstarter. We will get it sent out, packaged, and shipped."
So they were not running the Kickstarters. They weren't designing the games. They weren't paying the designers for the games.
Nope.
They were saying, hey, once you have a successful Kickstarter, pay us a big chunk of money and we will take care of the fulfillment and get the game out the door.
Distribution.
So that kind of like
Boxing it up, everything.
So you don't
the
have
business
to worry
headache
about.
that comes from a Kickstarter, you don't need to worry about.
that most designers don't really want to deal with.
Don't really
have a
want
lot of
exactly.
experience.
You're supposed to. I mean, you should be hiring that stuff out if you're a game designer. You don't want to build everything and package everything yourself.
Yeah.
So this, at the time, they approached people. They always approach people who have successful Kickstarters and
Well,
first-time
because those people
design.
have money.
Yes. And afterwards, basically, it all started out late returns to no returns on their products. Harassing people online for complaining about them. I can go ahead and take this direct quote, due to numerous infractions of our rules, guidelines, and terms of use, Golden Bell will no longer be afforded collaborate privileges on Kickstarter. Their association accounts have been suspended because of all these infringements, and they also took advantage of all these designers because a lot of them also didn't even get to touch the money from the Kickstarter. They signed it away because they had faith in this company that basically gave them a Cinderella story that became a nightmare. And they basically also used some of the tariffs to explain, of course the tariffs we've been talking about, saying, we can't deliver now. Because of this. One of the bigger scandals that they did was that they shipped board games via media mail. Media mail, if you guys are not familiar with, is a type of mailing where you only send your books or any paper quality. They sent board games and then charged the people who received them extra money. And also they had mislabeled shippings and send repeat copies to people. And some people even just got boxes with nothing in them. So
And I love that people would start to complain about it, and then the company would literally come out and call those people jerks online. Like, how dare you complain about not
And
getting
say
the
they were
thing
going
that you want?
to take legal action against them. They were also extorting people for additional shipping money. They would do the Kickstarter. So to be fair, a lot of first-time creators don't know how much shipping will cost, so they do the Kickstarter, they charge them for shipping, and then this company comes along and they'll say, oh wait, now the game was $25, the shipping is $35, and then they extort them. They're like, we're not going to send it to you unless you send us more money. And then they would do that multiple times. They would just beg for donations for shipping, and the thing is, a lot of Kickstarter creators do take a hit on the shipping. They make the shipping cheaper. They're like $5 shipping, where in reality it does cost $9, and they just take the hit on it. And Golden Bell was extortion, getting more money out of these people.
So when I looked on Kickstarter, there were still a few accounts that looked like they were associated with Golden Bell that were active.
yes.
So I don't know if they will be allowed to make new projects, or because I didn't see like a account suspended label on it or anything like that. So it's unclear to me whether Golden Bell might have other accounts that they're using, or if those accounts are just remaining there and have not been removed because they're associated with projects that exist that Kickstarter doesn't want to necessarily purge from the site.
Yes.
So this kind of suspension is so rare that
Right.
I don't.
Is that going to affect the projects that they make, like with companies that they've worked with before?
I don't know. Like
It's-
that's the thing is that this comes up so rarely. I don't know what it's even supposed to look
That could
like.
really screw over some game designers.
Well, it is because part of the thing, because people have made deals with them, and not to say they are scammy, but they have delivered some games and they are trying to function as a company, so people are actively collaborating with them, and they've been removed as collaborators. So yeah, if you're in the middle of your Kickstarter, you've collaborated with this person either because you don't know what they did or you don't care, but then all of a sudden your collaborator is gone, oh, we'll make your page for you, and now they can't log into the page and collaborate with you. So it is affecting.
I presume that Kickstarter will probably help those projects that are in the lurch there.
Yes.
But
I never assumed that with Kickstarter.
I presume.
But yes.
I think it's worth noting that, especially with how the internet works, it's very easy for someone to just make a new account and a new profile.
And
so
then
just keep an eye out for it, basically.
keep an
I
eye.
just like how in 2017 these guys were kind of cool, and then by 2019 they're on people's court defending themselves for being jerks.
Yeah.
Yeah, the People's Court is that that's the twist.
Yeah.
Multiple court cases, including people just to get on to
Judge
there
Wapner would have rolled
is-
over in his grave. Is all I'm saying.
But yeah, I mean, I guess what the big main point is, if you're going to be giving people benefit of the doubt, they just may have been a company that promised too much and did not deliver. But you get these games, like most notably Unbroken and Killbots, the card
Now,
game.
Unbroken was the first one they had problems with, isn't that right?
Yes.
Incompetence versus malice is the question.
Yeah, that's really what the question
Well,
is.
it starts off as incompetence, because they didn't get something done, and then you covered that incompetence with the malice. That's
Yeah.
like, hey, I screwed this up, and it's your fault.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess we could just take this as a cautionary tale and use this as an example to raise up some red flags if you happen to be a first-time designer doing a Kickstarter. And it's good that Kickstarter did take these precautions to ban them, essentially. Now we have to just see how the fallout is.
Well, I think the lesson there too is, if you are a designer in Kickstarter, if you have just had a very successful project and people start, they will start reaching out to
Oh
you
my gosh,
about how
yeah.
their services are going to be fantastic for your product. Take some time and ask around to other designers to see what experience they have with that same service before you send a whole lot of stuff over.
You also just know before the Kickstarter, that is the time to set all this stuff up, which is hard. You're excited to get your product out there, but if you do the research beforehand, you're not going to have a flood. No one's going to know you, right? So you're not going to have people coming at you. You'll be able to see people for who they are, right? People will talk to you differently if you have you're sitting on a big pile of money.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and go to happy news. Emma,
So happy.
what is your happy news that you're going to tell us today?
Wizards of the Coast is releasing a new unset for Magic the Gathering.
What's an unset?
An unset is a fabulous creation that is full of in-jokes and puns and silly cards, and one of the recent ones you had to put your head on the table while you were playing.
Oh.
So it's completely,
Finally, magic for
set.
dads.
right. Yes. It's the designer's way of all of the... Magic has a fair amount of humor, especially with recent sets, with
Yep, I was
the
about to
fairy
say,
tale theme. I think they've been working more humor, but historically there's also been a seriousness to it. A lot of people take the game very seriously, so this is a way for them to really get around a lot of that and to have fun creature types with squirrels. In this unset in particular, they're doing a lot of prototyping stuff, so like red scribble marks on the cards, like cross something out and write it in red pen. So some of the cool cards, they've actually spoiled all the cards. You can go online and see what the cards are for that.
Into the whole set?
Do that right now.
I
Yes.
believe so, yeah.
Wow.
So it has some reprints from Unglued, Unhinged, and Unstable. One was a HasCon promo. Does it have the My Little Pony card? I didn't look through all of them, but you should look
know.
and double check. So,
Wow.
Yes. My Little Pony.
So some of the fun cards included in this set. I didn't check to see if these were reprints or not, but just to give you a little sense of the flavor. MC, whenever another creature enters the battlefield, you may stand up and say, "Presenting."
Presenting.
the Dragon.
Just because the mechanic is you may stand up and say that? Like there's a rule
Yeah.
preventing
Yeah.
you from doing that otherwise?
No, Derek, this is Magic. So you might not want your creature to get +1/+1 for whatever reason. So you have the option.
Oh, okay. Just plus one. I
When
thought it was
you're-
just like, you may stand up and say presenting. I'm like,
Right,
you
and
can
if you
do that
do, you get a
anyway.
+1/+1
I
counter
guess
on
so.
it. That's a good deal.
If you do that, if you
Okay.
remember to do that, you'll get a +1/+1 counter.
Some people
on
are
the creature.
introverts too. And
Sure.
Yeah. It's, it's an important
I've seen a
point.
lot of introverts stand up and yell at
For-
game tables, though. Like almost all the ones I know.
For all of these cards, I do want to point out that there are some things like you may stand up, like there's things in the game that you might not be able to do or play a sub-game under the table. Something might be safety concerns or
Like
consent.
the go to jail card is pretty cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, go to jail. It traps the creatures. So
In Monopoly rules, so they have
Yeah.
to roll every round to get and try and get doubles.
yeah, and if
Like,
you get
I love
doubles,
that.
then you break out of jail.
We got you.
Enter the Dungeon, classic. Play a sub game under the table. So you're playing the game of here, and you have to go under the table. One of the judges has a cool story of having to actually judge, like get under the table with them during
Wow.
the
And-
games and
and-
play this. There's a lot of squirrels in there, which is great. And one of my personal favorites, the Elvish impersonators.
Yes.
This is a picture of an Elvish Elvis. Say that 10
Hunk of
times
burning
fast.
leaves.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's Derek's favorite card too,
I'm pretty
right?
sure, yeah. Derek
See,
really
but if it's
enjoys
an
that.
elvish impersonator, shouldn't
Yeah.
it be a human wearing fake elf ears in an Elvis costume?
Why
It
not?
might
Yeah.
be. I
Why
mean,
not just a
it's so
cosplayer,
close.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if elf is first, then they have to be an elf to
Yeah.
be an impersonator to be elf. And
But it wouldn't be
No,
an
it's like Victor
impersonator.
No,
Victoria.
because female impersonators don't have to be female.
Yeah, they would be an
Oh,
elvenator.
yeah.
Emelvinator?
Yeah, not an
Elvenator.
impersonator, because they're not a person, they're an elf. Like,
Wait, did you just say elves aren't persons?
Oh!
I don't know. are
Oh
they?
my god.
Hey,
Controversy.
real quick, elves aren't real.
Oh.
So-
Okay, all right. We'll let that one slide.
No, I can't
Toss that out there
believe
for
you
you.
all.
Yeah.
You all.
So yeah, the cards. I don't believe they have the release date yet. I didn't check that out before the show, but they have announced it and they've done the cards. So look forward to that if you like to play Magic, but in a silly way.
But yes, ooh, thank you.
It sounds like the best way to play Magic.
Yeah,
It does.
It's super fun.
Like,
yeah.
Silliness.
it's really hard to get mad and oh, the game's not played like that when you're, playing your elvish impersonator.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or to say the game is
Especially if you
broken.
have the MC card out first, you're like, and now presenting
Yeah,
the
there-
king of rock and roll.
There's literally a card with infinite power. So this has like
Elven King.
infinity attack.
So this sounds like my kind of game right there.
This
that's
does
what-
whatever
So-
damage I says it does.
Yeah,
a lot
exactly.
of a lot of the previous Magic stuff that's been coming out lately
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
ties directly into Arena. Does this have any Arena crossover? I mean, if it does, it can't be simple, but...
Yeah, no, not that I know. I mean, Arena's been pretty limited. It's not, because it's only the most recent sets. You know, all of the command, they don't have Commander on Arena yet. They don't have a lot of the older formats. They don't have a lot of the older cards. They don't currently have any of the uncards.
Well, I imagine that a lot of the uncards inherently wouldn't work in Arena because of like the weird stuff you get to do with them.
Yeah.
But I didn't know if they were going to try to put some of the jokes or something in there as a nod, but it sounds like it's separate.
They have pets in Arena, so they can always put something in that way. They can do special events that maybe tap into it. In general, that obviously the uncards aren't playable in any of the normal formats.
You're saying it's not tournament legal?
Infinite
Power is not tournament legal?
It is unsanctioned. It's right there. It's
unsanctioned. For the underground matches only.
Only
some people allow
Those underground Magic tournaments that I've heard so much about.
Yeah, allow their friends to play
CD
the
bars across the country.
Commander, so that's the closest thing. Sometimes they're like,
Yeah.
have them in more less formal formats.
First rule.
But yeah.
Probably not Arena though. That'd be a little tricky.
Yeah, I think like all the cards in Arena, yes.
Yeah.
I was hoping that they might like sneak 1 or 2 dope cards into Arena just so the Arena players are like, what?
I mean, well, they do,
Flip a coin.
because they have My Little Pony sleeves that I have purchased in Magic the Gathering Arena. So in that way, they have a little bit of
Is it just one pony or is it a variety?
Well, you can buy different sleeves for the different ponies. So each sleeve is of one pony, but there was like 4 or 5 different.
Wait, so that also raises digital sleeves raise an interesting element to me because like in the real world, obviously, you know, you couldn't have sleeves that have different art on the back because that would be marking the cards. But in a digital environment, there's no reason you couldn't because the sleeve backing doesn't have to match the contents of the sleeve. You just randomize what you know what I mean?
That would be super weird though.
Wouldn't it?
Yeah,
Hold
that'd
on.
be so,
Okay.
I guess so.
Wouldn't that
Chugga,
be an
chugga, chugga,
unsanctioned
chugga,
thing?
chugga, chugga, choo choo. Let's get this back on track.
I really didn't think we could stay on that topic for 15 minutes, and yet somehow we did.
Sorry about that, not to interrupt, but we're gonna go ahead and chug along to more news. This not to invalidate your conversation.
You are right, Bonsai.
But-
You are my fearless leader.
Chugga chugga. Let's go ahead to Christian. You got some Odyssey news. Take us on a journey.
Got some what? You didn't say that loud enough for me.
Odyssey.
Odyssey news. Oh, yes, of course. You're talking about something that we talked about just a couple months ago when it was on Kickstarter, is Modiphius is releasing Odyssey of the Dragonlords, which is Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition adventure book from the creator of Mass Effect and Baldur's Gate and Dragon Age. And
Yeah,
it
was the campaign setting that's all inspired by like Greek myths and stuff like that.
Yeah.
which I love.
Yeah.
I mean, I like Greek mythology anyway.
quite
The
the
Iliad and the
crossover.
Odyssey by Homer and such. It's
I think
pulled from
vaguely,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Those kinds of creatures, those kinds of, you know, everybody wears tunics and sandals. No pants in this world, no sir.
No, there's no pants right now.
Look, it took them a long time to discover pants technology.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
they're not easy to make from what I understand.
Wasn't it also like a uncivilized to have seams in that?
Is that unseemly?
It's an.
Man, I'm really gonna miss having you around here once a month. So Modiphius is finally releasing this Odyssey of the Dragonlords adventure, which is a full book. It's going to be really cool. And the guy that they had make the game is somebody that we talked about just last week here on TableTakes, because he is the man who has been hired to run the new digital studio for Wizards of the Coast. So
Making the new mystery game.
Bonsai. I think they want to give you some.
Yes, yes,
Yes.
yes.
Silent critiques of the mic.
Yes, I'm trying.
you can just talk into my neck. It'll probably
I'll
work
talk.
pretty well.
Do it into the earpiece.
Okay.
So yeah, no, it's going to have classes and paths for you to choose, and it's out. There
Okay.
you go. You can
Yeah.
have it.
Well,
You
yeah,
will
so because
purchase it with
it was on
money.
Kickstarter, Modiphius is bringing it to retail.
Right.
Yes.
So it was on Kickstarter, now not on Kickstarter. Now, check your local store.
Your local store.
Or your local Amazon. How does that work?
Well, speaking about local stores, segue
That
to
was a
Epic
really good segue.
Store.
I am like super proud of you right now.
Thank
Bonzo.
you. Epic Game Stores, this was informed to me by my chat and many other sources, so of course we're going to have to talk about it. If you want to go ahead and get some free digital examples of classic tabletop games, right now Epic Game Store has Carcassonne and Ticket to Ride between February 6th and 13th. All you have to do is sign up for that account on the Epic Game Store and pick up a copy.
Yeah, they usually have like one free game a week or so.
Yeah, one free game
Yeah.
a week.
They've been
so-
doing a couple bursts of more, and they paired up a couple board games this time.
Yes.
Yeah. They
So-
have a lot of free games. I
Well,
haven't
they're
played,
trying to compete with Steam,
Right,
so
they're trying to
the way
build
to
up
do
their
that is
audience.
to shovel free games out there.
I haven't played any games on Epic Game Store yet, but I've downloaded it and I get all the free games. So
Yep.
I have all these free games.
Yep, that's what we do.
Yeah.
It's working.
Free games.
All the free games. But yeah, that's just.
I haven't given them any money yet, so I don't know how well it's working. But maybe someday.
I bought some
So
stuff.
they're adding this stuff next week, this week.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
week.
Yep, it's-
Or well,
it's live now.
yesterday. Yesterday. So it is live. So you guys just keep an eye on it. It's a good store to just grab some free games and also buy some games too if you don't want to go through Steam. Like don't let people have monopolies. I guess you could say free market.
Yeah.
America's not so big on preventing monopolies anymore.
And
Sorry.
they're,
Ah,
and they're
ah.
taking
Break it
Pandemic off the store?
Yes.
Well, no, I don't think they're taking it off the store. So originally, Pandemic was supposed to be free. It was supposed to be 3 games.
Yes.
Right.
3
But
games.
Pandemic, they said that they are gonna try to do a thing at a later date.
Yes.
But I believe Pandemic is still in the store. It's just not free.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just not free. You just have to wait, or you could just buy it now.
You can give them money. I mean,
Yeah.
that's nice.
Give
I've
me
got
money.
Pandemic.
Yeah, I have a hard copy of it as well.
I've got Legacy too.
Yep.
Never
But
did
yes.
finish that.
Neither did I.
But yes. All right. Since we got that news over with, Christian, back to you. You have more stuff, right?
Oh no, this is. I mean, it's not more stuff. It's so much. Pathfinder is releasing a new module, and since those have been coming out so infrequently, it's newsworthy.
And
Yes.
Is this the first Adventure Path post second edition?
Or
is it-
if not, then it's the second.
Yeah, yeah. Like so, it's one of the few that are fully out there for second edition.
Right. And,
Yes.
I mean, second edition. A lot of people love it, so I'm excited. I haven't played it yet. That's the thing. I've got it. I just don't have anybody to play with. We're still playing first edition in my house because we have all of those books. But this is kind of this Extinction Curse Adventure Path takes players to the Starstone Isles where they get to play. Get this: a troupe of circus performers.
That's pretty cool.
This is why I'm excited. That's the only reason is that
Personally
you get to be a traveling group of circus performers.
I have to say, between Pathfinder running away to join the circus
Yes.
and Elvish impersonators,
Yes.
there's a remarkable conflux of headlines this week of ridiculousness. I just want to point out.
Well, what I want to know about this is, can you just role play as a group of circus performers doing a circus, and that's all you do? Because I think that would be a great game.
Just to
Okay,
replace
well,
it.
this you probably can do that, but if you do that, you won't uncover the sinister plot to exterminate all life on Starstone Isle. You probably won't live through the adventure.
Yeah.
I mean, how long are you gonna live anyways, right?
But now I'm just imagining the GM who just stone-faced lets the players do it.
Yeah, just like,
like, fine, you didn't pick up that plot
you
thread.
ignore the attack on your
then-
persons
and
that
then-
night and go and do your show the next day.
The show must go on.
The show must
Great
go
news,
on.
it sells out. Bad news, by the end of it, everyone is dead.
Yeah, just 3 months later, you're like, oh, well, at the climactic moment, Dumbo flies, everyone's happy. Oh, life is extinguished.
Eat,
Well-
drink, and be merry.
Oh, maybe it wasn't actually Dumbo flying. It was just everybody dying simultaneously.
Oh,
And so they
It
just.
wasn't really.
Mass
It's not so much Dumbo
hallucination.
flying as the
Yeah.
is the Ranger's flying pet dressed up like an elephant.
Ah, yes.
Okay.
Max.
So there you go, circus themed Pathfinder. Boom.
Boom. Also with more booms. Bumbles. Humble bundles.
Oh, we're okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's talk about bundles for a second. There's a
getting
couple of
serious.
things. The Humble Bundle has the Humble RPG Bundle, the Lord of the Rings 5e Final Encore by Cubicle 7. Yes, I have already talked about this because they did the exact same thing just a few weeks back, or maybe a couple months back. Either way, not that long ago. But this is just a bunch of the Lord of the Rings stuff that they put out for 5th edition, the Cubicle 7 put out that they are no longer publishing. There you go. You can get it on the Humble Bundle. Supports World Builders, which is a charity of some kind, I
There.
assume.
So Sophisticated Games actually is the license holder from Middle-earth Enterprises that had Cubicle 7 doing the publishing. So when Cubicle 7 posted back, was it November or whatever, that they were no longer going to do this because they were having a contract dispute that was already in place and such, just, I guess, the reality of the contract started to come up, and Cubicle 7 just went, nah, that's not worth it. Yeah, exactly. They're doing great with Doctor Who and all these others, and they had their best year ever last year and such.
The problem with some of those licensing deals is they are a little hard to abide by the contract.
No, and especially the Tolkien property
they
is
are
notoriously. Whew, and but Sophisticated Games interestingly said on their Facebook page at the same time, though Cubicle 7 is no longer going to be publishing, we're still planning to continue this product line. And there's been no update since then, but that was a very interesting counter posting. So if they're just going to find a different publisher
For me, that's the same as going to your favorite restaurant, seeing it out of business, and say, we'll be reopening somewhere else soon with no location or date on there, and you never see that restaurant again.
Yeah, that's how it goes. We'll just have to, again, the Tolkien IP, we've done whole lectures on just the history of that. It's complicated.
And why it's such a pain in the butt.
It is.
So this may or may not be your absolute last time to get this.
Well, it will be the last of the Cubicle 7 stuff, unless they do more, but...
Unless it isn't.
But if they're able to get the IP over to another publisher, who knows? We'll see.
Anyway, if you like the Cubicle 7 products and you want to play Lord of the Rings in 5th edition, this is one of those ways that you can do that that has been given the go-ahead by the Tolkien estate, which is great.
Enterprises.
Enterprises.
Middle-earth Enterprises. Estate is family and books.
I apologize for getting that wrong. Wow. Man,
Big lawsuits.
don't I feel like
Big
just
lawsuits.
the biggest jackass in the world right now.
And then
okay.
No, I got the name wrong of a company that I didn't know existed until just now. I might have to just take a moment.
While you're doing that, so then the charity World Builders, they've been doing a lot of charity work related to RPGs and kind of nerd interests and stuff like that. And then I believe that they try to get like cows and goats and whatnot to villages that need those kinds of resources.
that's actually really
That's
important.
pretty cool. So they're like, they're playing board games, but like for real.
Yeah.
You need sheep? Here's some wood.
We're going to transfer these resources to you.
And we've been really happy with the Adventures of Middle-earth and the One Ring role-playing game products in our programs and everything, so we can definitely recommend it as a product.
Well, there you go, and you can get that for almost no money at all, like $8, and that stuff is yours on the Humble Bundle. The Bundle of Holding also has a bunch of stuff that we've seen before, but that's okay. We've got the 2000 AD based on the, what is that, What is Old is New, which I've never played. Has anybody played What is Old is New?
I will admit, no.
It apparently is a rather crunchy role-playing system. They say on par with Pathfinder or Dungeons & Dragons 3rd edition. I have no idea how the system works, but they are offering a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, so there's like a Judge Dredd one. There's a separate one for just the system itself, I think.
Yes.
Right, just a What is Old is a New system. Yeah, it's got a full-color book.
It's a lot of stuff.
The worlds of 2000 AD, which is
Based off the comic book.
based off the comic book of Judge Dredd, right?
Well, 2000 AD was the comic book that Judge Dredd first appeared in, I think.
Yes.
And then grew off from. So it's like
It's
Judge
here's
Dredd's,
the whole world.
It's Judge
You
Dredd's
don't just get
extended
to play a
family.
judge.
Yeah.
It's not the Sylvester Stallone movie version.
Yeah.
Right.
Aw, that's too bad.
It's more like the Carl Urban
Well,
movie
there's
version.
still a lot of like blood and darkness and harsh like colored lines. All right.
Yeah. And
But-
very, very expressive faces with big teeth.
All right.
And hats.
And
Lots of hats.
Lots of hats.
Helmet hats.
It
So
supports the Rainforest Trust. Totally a worthwhile cause because, rainforests are important and stuff.
yes, all the rainforest. So for those who do watch us regularly here at TableTakes, we're going to go ahead and do a little bit of a change up because we want to go ahead and give more time to Hawke and his discussion about neurodiversity. We're going to go ahead and cover Kickstarters first, real quick. That's why we've been kind of going, hey, news, because we really want to get onto this topic. So we're going to go ahead and go out of order because usually we do Kickstarters last. We're going to be doing Kickstarters here and then finishing up with the neurodiversity topic so you guys in chat can have time to ask more questions from Hawke. So Kickstarter quiz.
So the first thing to talk about Kickstarter is that Zine Quest 2 has launched. So if anybody's not familiar with this, Kickstarter has
like-
kind of...
Zine Quest 1, but this time the animals talk?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Kickstarter has like a number of kind of requirements to be part of Zine Quest, and then it's just a theme hashtag kind of grouping of projects. So it has to be RPG related. It has to be in an 8x5, 8.5 by 5.5 size or smaller. It has to be one color printing, and it can't be like perfect bound or anything like that. It has to be folded, stapled, saddle stitched, or unbound entirely. It can only have a 2-week funding period. So if you satisfy all those criteria, you can contact Kickstarter and say, hey, we'd like to be part of Kickstarter Quest. I think it has to launch in February too.
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically February is Kickstarter, or is Zine Quest 2 month. So if you love the idea of these really very small, focused, idiosyncratic, kind of weird little RPG products,
Yes.
now is your month. There's going to be a bunch of projects. We have a couple in here, but most of them, because of the 2-week funding, are going to be showing up in future episodes. But if any of that kind of stuff sounds cool to you, if you like that feeling of the old school kind of module, but like just a wider variety of what it might cover, go to Kickstarter and check out Zine Quest 2.
Okay.
All right.
So the first project, which is actually part of Zine Quest 2, is one-page lore fantasy folk. And this is basically a collection of just very simple one-page kind of like summaries / reworks of traditional fantasy races that would show up in like a D&D game or something like that.
Yes.
So it's got
Nice.
elves and dwarves and stuff, but it tries to spin them a little bit different, and it avoids some of the things that some folks criticize about fantasy races,
Like half-orcs always being very problematic.
Yep. So like it avoids some of the cultural problems. It also avoids some of the issues of like, well, these races get bonuses to strength and penalties to intelligence and things like that.
Yes.
So steering away from like strict attribute modifiers
Yeah.
and more towards behaviors and proclivities.
Like the culture itself.
A
Yeah.
little bit, yeah. So it's an interesting slight twist on a lot of these fantasy races.
Okay.
So if you've ever kind of started to get bored of the typical dwarves and elves and halflings, this is
I
another.
do, just because they're all so racist.
Well, so
yeah, exactly.
this is an attempt to make them a little bit less racist and maybe a little bit different.
Yeah, I mean, the truth of it is, a lot of these races came out of stereotypes. You know,
Yes.
historical fantasy does have kind of a problematic history, so I appreciate.
Don't get me started on the dwarves.
Or the lizard men.
Yeah, I appreciate someone taking this attempt because culture is a really cool thing in games. You know, like you do like have different people from different backgrounds is very satisfying to play with. So doing that in a better way sounds really cool.
Yes. Good job.
So the next Kickstarter is one that I brought show and tell for. And this is Never Going Home campaign dossiers. So this is the previous Kickstarter that they had. And Never Going Home, I think this one's the art book. If anybody wants to flip through that and get excited.
Yeah.
You wanna?
So Never Going Home is basically a World War I occult, weird war kind of story.
With lots of sprays of blood in the journal.
Yep. So like the journal is like a kind of a record of what you're doing or your character sheet and stuff like that. So it's just ever since Wraith the Great War. I don't know if anybody played that. I've loved the idea of weird and horrific or horror takes on World War I.
Oh, really?
And this was a very cool project that was in Kickstarter. They did very, very well at Gen Con this past year too. They ran a number of events, got a lot of traffic to their booth and whatnot. So their new project includes kind of some supplements and some new adventures and stuff. There's there's 3 of them. Bones in the Sand, which is about the kind of Britain in the Ottoman Empire. It's all about mystic relics and stuff like that. There's Blood in the Snow, which expands the setting up into the Russian front. And there's Tears in the Sea, which is all about U-boats and weird biomechanical meshing and melding of the crew with the U-boat. Yeah, see? There you go.
nice.
Now you're getting why I like it.
Yeah.
Yep.
No man's land, tree chops you.
Yep. So if you
Nom nom.
want an indie RPG about weird occult horror World War I, then the project is on Kickstarter right now. And I don't know how
Giant
widely
rats.
available
They
it
have-
is beyond that.
They have something called a murder of ravens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I think. That's a
Murder of
murder
crows.
is.
No, it's a murder of crows. It's an unkindness of ravens.
Oh wait.
Yep.
Really?
Yeah.
Yep.
Huh.
Yep.
An unkindness of.
Also, they
ravens.
spelled bored as in being bored, B-O-A-R-D.
There.
So, looks cool, but
Christian,
poorly spelled.
the editor.
Sorry.
But the next project,
I like
Emma,
my words
wanna
slanted.
take over.
Next up, we have 2 Women, 12 Games is one of the Make 100 projects, which is from January last month. So projects launching in January that had at least one tier with only 100, a limited amount. So for this project, the limited amount was a special version of the book, but you can still get the alternate cover version. There's still copies of that available. And this is just a collection of really unique role-playing games by Elizabeth Chipratikul and Steffi Devan over the course of 2019. So over 12 months, they made a indie role-playing game each month, and now they're available in this collection. Really cool stuff like Return to Wonderland, We Die Here, Kitten Witches.
I see how you got excited.
Yeah.
Kitten Witches does sound kind of exciting.
They just have used some really inspiring mechanics. For example, they have a diceless coloring role-play game. Kitten Witches uses just a regular deck of cards where the suits are purrs, whiskers, toe beans, like their little jelly bean toes, and hairballs.
Thank you for explaining to me what toe beans were.
Toe beans, a little jelly bean. I wasn't sure. It's a really cute thing. I wasn't sure if you would know what that was.
I appreciate the definition too.
There is a whole side of me that you clearly don't understand. And I've
You
never
are a very
connected with.
complex person, Derek.
I
It's
contain,
a lot of layers.
I contain multitudes.
Yeah.
I like the poking of
And I want to say one of the coolest things, I think, is the Bloody Demon Slayers. I'm just going to read the quote directly from the Kickstarter. It's empowering as it is entertaining. I feel embarrassed talking about my character's menstruation, but the game is set up to tell the stories positively. If periods gave Buffy and Sailor Moon their powers, then that sounds really cool. So it's like actually characters drawing powers from their periods.
Man, I would be the least powerful.
There.
Oh.
Well, I'm just very light flow.
Yeah.
Very light.
There
very
are a
light.
whole series of, I think they're on Amazon Prime and elsewhere, of fantasy films that are based on that theme.
Yeah.
Are they good?
Why are you asking that question out loud?
I mean, I could see, depending on how it's
Different
handled,
qualities
different
Yeah.
qualities
If I say they're good, am I a perv?
there. But it's a topic that's not usually discussed, you know. So I love the perspective here. I love that it's just everything from fantasy to sci-fi, post-apocalyptic, and there's a lot of really cool stuff.
Well,
going
it
on
also feels like there's a whole realm or genre or movement of RPGs that are very small, very focused, very short.
Yeah.
They're not going to support campaigns. They're not even going to necessarily support multiple play sessions.
Yeah.
They're just kind of one and done, designed even for hyper brief one shots.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, you know, I love the idea that this is just a collection of games that were designed by two women, kind of put together as a sampler.
One a month, which I think is even
Yeah. Yep. So it's just a sampler that you can
Sampler,
go through
exactly.
and get a
Sampler.
whole bunch of variety.
Yeah. And most of these RPGs are very easy to get into, very accessible, like
I wasn't even.
a mechanic of a deck of
No,
cards.
they literally put out
so
a game
as
every
long
month.
as you
It wasn't
have
that.
a deck of cards, you just jump into
Nope,
it
not
and
a
play the
period
game.
I thought it was very
And just be able to really easily.
The two of you have something you need to share with the class.
No.
No, she was
thought-
like, I got that, and I'm like, you got. Oh,
There.
she thought I was making a period
I
joke when I
thought
was
you
just
were
saying they
making-
came out with
sorry, I didn't
a
mean to
game
interrupt.
every month.
Yeah.
So they weren't released periodically.
There.
Oh boy.
All right. Well,
Oh boy.
So if I can continue
Yes.
talking about this really cool project, it's nice for a role-playing game. You know, a lot of the bigger ones can take a lot of time to get into. But
Yep.
this one, hop in, play it once, have a really cool experience. Yeah.
Played
Very.
on a lunch break, some of them.
Yeah.
yeah. Very interesting. Yes. Oh, also, since we're going from periods, let's go to cuteness. Good segue. Great segue.
We just did a thing about kitten witches. I think that's
Kitten
pretty
witches.
cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, kitten witches. But guess what? With 4 days, Animal Adventures: Secrets of the Gullet Cove. It's basically a intro 5th edition RPG game that you can pick up. It has really cute figurines. The most important thing is you get to play with fluffy animals. That's really why I love this.
Well, I like to play with fluffy animals.
Yes, we love to play with fluffy animals. But speaking of it,
Outside.
Darkside loves the fluffies.
Sure.
Anywho, in addition, so they have it's a 170-page source book with 21 plus minifigurines. If you want to go ahead and get a sample, they have a Necromastiff and Scully Cats. So, I mean, that should just sell you.
So like this seems to be kind of in the line of many of the other projects that we've covered that many of you got excited about.
Yes.
That were animal companions or familiars or adventurers. Some of them are anthropomorphized. These ones are not.
No.
Some of them are like so. it is a continuing trend that I'm hoping is just filling your shelf at this point.
Yes. Yes.
I did back the original Animal Adventures, the cat set of the creatures. I don't know what I'm going to do with them. But
You can
do
use them here.
the game. Yeah, so you get the characters from all the
Or you
different,
can
because they've
give
done a
them
few
away to
Kickstarters.
dear friends.
Oh, you're gonna play adorable cat.
A
Yes.
reliable source tells me that he likes to play with fluffy animals.
Yes. Very fluffy.
You're not gonna murder them or anything. They're gonna.
I'm not the murdery one.
Okay.
I know I get heated, but I don't get violent.
I'm pretty sure the fluffy animals are going to do the murdering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is a problem with this thing though, because they can't die. Like the animal companions, they can't die
Why?
Yes.
because
Because.
the dog never dies. The cat never dies.
Oh no, that's in movies you're thinking of. In role-playing games, if you have an animal companion,
Oh yeah,
they
you
die.
never said
That's in
no.
boring movies.
See, this is why we left Jeff with the wizard, because Jeff, being the owlbear, our
Okay.
owlbear companion
Yes,
for
yes.
our campaign, Jeffrey Magdalene, our owlbear that I took in and nurtured and took care of, but we couldn't take her on adventures because maybe something would happen to her. So that would be.
So you kept her sheltered and locked up and wouldn't let her achieve her full potential?
No, she
Wow,
is.
what a controlling mother you were. Jeez.
Nothing bad can ever happen
Good
to
thing there's
her.
no,
I
like-
couldn't handle it.
Yeah, good thing there's no ASPCA in Fantasyland.
No,
right?
yeah. But yes,
So this is another example of adventuring with animals.
adventuring with animals.
Adventuring.
Yeah.
It has
Role-playing games involving cute animals are always good.
always good. It,
Really?
like I said,
Always?
Maybe not in this next case, but
but yes. What?
Well,
oh,
you were
next
excited
case,
about it.
Yeah.
I was excited about it because the animals are adorable. This is this is called Here to Slay. It's got 4 days left, and it calls itself a strategic fantasy RPG. That looks basically like you're playing Munchkin, because you're all kind of after each other to take each other down, but you're also playing characters. Anyway,
Somebody in chat apparently has already backed it.
yeah,
Nice.
yeah, it's adorable. I mean, if you've seen the video for it, the animals alone are kind of worth being like, oh, I kind of want to give them my money because they
It's-
look really cute.
It's
Yeah.
from the people who did Unstable Unicorns.
Yes.
And
Yes.
It has
Also
a very
adorable.
similar, super cute art style.
Yes.
I have not played Unstable Unicorns. Have you?
I have not.
I have not. I've been very strongly suggested by some of my friends, being also in chat right now, that maybe I should go play some Unstable Unicorns. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. It's just like,
Okay.
this is one of my friends in chat. Hey.
So,
Yeah.
more about Here to Slay?
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. So the idea is that you are basically all playing cute animal adventurers that are trying to either build their own party or slay monsters, or both. First person to slay 3 monsters wins. Pretty simple in concept. Or the first person to build their party all the way up wins.
Yeah.
But like Munchkin, the idea is to screw everybody else over and win, right? So
Yeah.
in the most humiliating way possible. But this time with cute animals.
Yeah. So if you like the idea of Munchkin, but wanted the art to be cuter,
Yes.
we got you
Yeah,
covered,
We got
bud.
you covered.
We probably won't implement this in our incarcerated population programs. Might be
Cuteness.
problematic.
See, and that's how we know you're good at your job, Hawke.
Good job.
so another project, and I've been realizing we've been forgetting to mention how many days left are in a lot of these.
said
Oh, yeah.
before.
I mentioned.
Well, apparently I'm just bad.
Shameful.
So with
You've been saying so for
with
months.
5 days left, Delayed Blast Game Master is another one of the Zine Quest ones. Yep.
I love it.
Yep.
Delayed Blast Game Master.
Yep. So this is a
I literally
collection.
play with that guy.
This is a collection of like a bunch of different stuff. A lot of it is inspiration. A lot of it is like 1d6 things. So like 1d6 pieces of treasure, 1d6 NPCs, 1d6 maps that you might find.
5 golden. No. Okay.
Nope. Although redoing that song for dice would be a little weird. So again, it's a very hyper focused, cute, weird little thing. Although I think the project grew from like originally 24 pages. You know, it's been funded enough to get up through 40 pages now.
Nice.
Yes.
So
No, but those pages are all half sheets, right?
Correct.
Because it follows the same 8.5 by 5.5 format.
Yeah.
For zines.
Yep.
So,
So I
this
think-
is a zine quest.
yes, it's a Zine Quest one. I think a number of the stretch goals are like add another 4 pages of this topic, add another 4 pages of this topic. So if you kind of want just a collection of things to inspire you at the table or random tables to roll on, which I know a lot of people love,
Okay.
check it out.
All right.
The next project with 5 days left as well is Jurassic Parts.
Rule 34 at work.
There.
No?
No, I think you're misunderstanding. This is the one where they dig up
pun.
bones and reassemble them.
Oh. So, like you work at a museum.
Make a dinosaur.
So this is a kind of a, you're playing a game where you're archaeologists excavating bones and then trying to assemble them into a reasonable skeleton.
And you've seen those kits they have where it's like a slab of sandstone that you have to actually chisel away for
Yeah.
kids to
Yeah.
actually pull bones out. I guess there's a little bit.
That was one of my favorite birthday or Christmas presents as a kid, was just like this hunk of clay that
Yep.
you had to pull things out of.
Yeah.
Oh, neat.
They still do that. It's
See you
huge.
there, just like brushing
Yeah.
with the brush.
I've never even
They're
seen
cool.
that before.
Yeah, they're pretty
With
cool.
fine
I
motor
want
skills,
that.
it's
I
good.
loved it.
And patience.
So this is a board game version of that. So apparently there's some cooperative competitive elements where you have to work with players a little bit, but then ultimately there's a winner. So we've had a couple other ones that are about the general theme, and if you just love dinosaurs or archaeology or things like that, paleontology, you should check this one out.
Cool.
Cool.
Bonsai?
Oh no, not bonsai. Christian.
Oh, Christian took it.
What about me? What I do? What I do?
You got.
That's right. Okay, so with just 6 days left, Hero Forge 2.0. If you don't know what Hero Forge is, just go and check it out. It's a great little program that allows you to design your own custom miniatures. I've bought a lot of things from this company.
Well, so I mean, just to talk about, like, you can fully design your miniature. Like you
Fully.
don't upload
Yes.
a design, but they've
No.
got a bunch of choices you can pick from for like, gender, race, size, pose, accessories.
But I made custom minis for all of the custom characters on one of the new shows we're doing, and
There's also a bunch of different printing methods you can get
yeah,
for
you
like
can,
different
you-
expenses.
Yeah, you
and
can just
different
get the
sizes.
PDF and print it yourself if you've got a 3D printer, or you can
Nice.
get different materials. You can do everything from like the regular 3D printing plastic to all the way up to like bronze and crazy metals.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hero Forge 2.0 is even better because you can get everything pre-painted.
Yes.
Not only does it have new elements like that you can add to your figures, but you get them colored ahead of time. I don't have to paint them anymore.
Well,
I don't have to.
Not only that, but I think there's multiple levels of the pre-painting. There's
Yes.
like machine painted,
There's
which
machine
is
painted.
basic colors.
Yeah. Well, there's colored plastic.
I think there's that too.
Yeah.
Like there's multiple things.
Yeah.
So you can get it pre-painted relatively basically. But then I think they have another tier that is pre-painted like by
Hand-painted.
the painters, the artists in their studio or network that they're working with,
Yeah.
basically.
As I say, for Christmas, my wife got me a 3D printer, so I was very excited about it.
Nice.
Yeah.
I can't wait to get started. I've just been
Plus,
so
they're
busy
offering
trying to-
digital tokens now too. Like if you play on Roll20 or Fantasy Grounds,
Yep.
you've got your little Hero Forge characters that are tokens that they can do digitally,
Nice.
which is super cool.
That is really cool.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. It's got 6 days left, and
How much money has it raised so far?
only like 2.3 million.
Yeah. Just a little. Just
Well,
one over
like if
$1
you've
million.
seen or used Hero Forge 1, you want to back Hero Forge 2 because it's everything that's missing from Hero Forge 1.
Yes.
And it's it's just a
Yes. I also have thrown money at Hero Forge.
and I'm going to be throwing money at this as well.
But
All right,
now
our last Kickstarter, 6 days left. Emma,
Last but not least, we talked about it briefly a couple weeks ago. Somebody was asking about it. Pineapple, a visceral truth or lie game, has 6 days left. 3 to 11 person game where you ask deep questions, get weird, get awkward, and find some liars. So you're telling truths, you're telling lies. This game is not my personal Kickstarter. This is by my friend Jonathan Ritter-Roderick. But one of the cool things is he's brought on some amazing co-designers for this game to help design the content of the cards.
All familiar names, by the way.
Yeah, including Keith Baker, Jen Ellis, Jordan Draper, Mike Sillinker, and yours truly. We've all been unlocked so far, so you don't have to rush over to unlock any of us because
so what you're saying is that Jonathan was nice enough to let you out of the Wizard's Tower to go adventure in the world and find what you would encounter?
yes.
Also, what do you mean by
Yes.
visceral?
Visceral, like viscera.
Yeah, I know. I
Yeah.
know what it means.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with the word.
One of the cards is
What do
gut
you
your
mean?
friend.
Yes.
Yeah.
What
Stab
do
your
you mean when you
friends.
say it's a visceral game?
I don't know. Yeah, that's Jonathan. That
Okay, because that's a really scary word to be using.
there.
The Kickstarter was basically like
visceral
this. You will ask a question that is
It's like this game might
is
actually
like,
physically harm you.
Yeah.
Read your entrails.
yeah, like he was saying you would ask a question that was detailed, personal, or weird. I think were like the
Yeah.
the three broad categories.
I think for the feeling that he's going for this is a lot of games. Truth lie games can be weird if you have to make up all the questions yourself, right? Because it just gets awkward, uncomfortable. But the idea here is to like dig a little deeper and get to know your friends a little better, and maybe have some feelings and
Digging
emotions.
deeper is where they get the visceral from.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we?
That
can
makes
we get
sense
a-
now. I thought they were just using
Ooh.
fancy writer words.
Oh wait.
One of the most important parts, it was one of the Make 100 projects. The 100 first games came with a golden pineapple that's unfortunately sold out because they were super cool. But just in the last couple of days, they've added the pine apple pin, which is not a pineapple. It's an apple with a little pine
That's the whole
tree
thing. It's
sticking out
pineapple.
of it.
It's you can lie or not.
Yeah,
Is the golden
'cause-
pineapple like a psych reference, or do you know about how they have a pineapple in every
I think it's just
Yeah.
because Jonathan is from Layways Games and they always do cool metal stuff.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, can we get a little taste of something that you maybe added to this, or no? Is it all secrets?
It's secret
Oh,
because I've
secrets.
totally already done my part of the design.
You
and I
haven't.
just don't want to share it.
You're
yet.
using your lying face. I just saw it.
Lies, no, all the lies. But yes, I know people were very excited in chat, and you guys, hey, do you want to go ahead and get something made by Emma? Huh?
And a bunch of other cool people.
And a bunch
I mean,
of
it's
other
not
people,
just
but
me.
mostly it's awesome.
There.
I'm just joking. I'm joking.
Well, I'll back your Kickstarter because I think it sounds cool.
Oh, thank you.
Also, you used the word visceral, which scared me and makes me more interested.
All right.
Feel it in my jigglies.
Now that we have gone
We'll
from
cut those right out. That would be visceral.
Ooh, very visceral. But now we have come to the point that you guys have all been waiting for. Let's go ahead and start off this discussion about neurodiversity in gaming. Hawke, can you?
But first, show and tell.
Show
Yeah,
and
there's a little bit of a transition here.
Show and
So we
yeah.
got
Show
show
and
show and tell that will then transition into
You
that.
got stuff.
Got stuff.
did bring
So
stuff.
this is there was a Kickstarter by Cursed Crypt called the Mimic Board, and it is this magnetic board that
It looks like a quarter pound on its own.
yeah, it's
he-
got
nice and
different-
heavy.
yeah, and they click together, so you can link them together, but you can stack them. They made it so you can put it in your backpack or other bags, etc. And all sorts of magnetic layers. These are from many different artists. They have a marketplace for different artists, and artists I think get like 50% of the cut or something.
There you go.
So it's a great way to help them get their stuff out there. And so these are battle mats.
Yeah, can you show them?
And
show them
yeah,
this
so
one,
good. If you want to lay that out, that's a Colosseum one without the grid.
Oh, neat.
You'll just stick it out there.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
It's a puzzle.
Do your little puzzle.
It's a puzzle
there.
with 4 pieces. Let's see if we can manage.
Assuming I grabbed all the
Nope.
pieces, hopefully I didn't miss one.
I think it's more than 4 pieces.
Yeah.
That's 5.
It's too sticky.
Yeah, might be
It's
missing
very,
one.
very,
But you
very.
can kind of play around with that. So that's the more basic, version. But what's interesting is you can layer up the magnets. So here we have the little in.
A roof.
You got the roof.
Oh gosh.
Gosh,
got
you
the
took your
second
top
floor.
off.
Oh
You got
geez.
the first floor. So you
Oh,
can
man.
reveal as you need to the different parts, and it's already graphed and everything for your minis, etc. And it holds together well. So the nice thing is you can lay everything out, stick it in here, stack them, put them in your bag or box, take them down, quickly deploy them, and you're good to go. So check that out. And you don't have to get the full covered area.
I feel like I'm playing with color forms again,
You can have just individual pieces,
which,
right?
by the way,
So
I miss.
same thing. You just got the different layers all by itself.
Yeah.
I'm over here just entertaining.
And what's notable, they spent a lot of time experimenting. You can use dry erase on the actual board itself, wet erase, and even a Sharpie, and
What?
be able to remove it.
Oh.
Yeah. And,
like a
and
full
then
clean.
it's dishwasher safe and all of that if you
Wait,
need
it is
to.
actually
Yeah, if you
dishwasher
take
stuff?
off the magnetic stuff,
Oh,
you can
okay.
run them through the dishwasher.
Oh.
So,
I like the padded bottoms too.
yeah, they got,
That's gonna
and that
keep you
keeps them from sliding and everything.
Well, I like padded bottoms, and I cannot lie.
Ooh, other brothers can't deny.
And
yeah.
so there's just all sorts of different options here. They can do or will be able to in the future do custom work where you can send them, hey, I need a map for this module. Can you whip something up for me, etc.
But you
There's
were
a
saying
gazillion generics,
to tie this
etc.
into the neurodiversity, you
Right.
were saying that they were going to have some really interesting options to
So
make some of the
we-
games more accessible.
Yeah, so what we're talking about is they should. I got to be careful about this because of NDA stuff, but basically, some stuff we're talking about that would help for people with visual impairments or people who need tactile stimulus. You know, you can do like the 3D like cheap dungeons and stuff, like we have the 3D ones, but they're easy to knock over. With these, working on potentially having like, let's say it's a dungeon and you want to have the walls magnetically laid out, and you can feel along because you can see they're raised up, and you can feel the outline. And so for visually impaired or blind, you can kind of feel the room as you move along. It can be high contrast. There's different options. So it still doesn't quite exist yet, but we're looking forward to that being a possibility. Looks like I did miss a piece there because it was an oval. Oh well, my bad. So yeah, just lots of possibilities here, and also
Like chat was talking about colorblind folks. We were talking about that
exactly,
before.
yeah,
Yeah.
all sorts of options there.
Oh,
also,
yeah, it's
yeah,
good.
they're not going to come off.
They're not gonna come off.
They're going to stay on. I mean, heck, you
Magnets.
could slap
How do they
you
even
could
work?
slap these on your car. I mean,
I mean,
if it's a
Do
metal
a car
car.
dungeon crawl.
Yeah, if
it's
a metal
always that's what I
car.
do with magnets. So you got to do a shake test to
Your
see how
refrigerator,
quality
etc.
your.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
a
Is
tree.
that how we're
and
gonna-
Oh, yeah,
under
trees.
the
How do they
tree.
work?
all of that.
Hide all the stuff under the tree.
Now, the actual vinyl and stuff, those you should only just use the normal for vinyl battle mat. You don't want to use a Sharpie or anything like that on that, but the boards themselves you can. So lots of options. So this was a Kickstarter. It funded. I'd help fund it, support it. But you can go in the near future, go as they're finishing fulfillment right now, go buy these and such.
So this
That's
is
correct.
potentially they're working on some things that are going to help some neurodiverse folks
That's
be
what we're
more comfortable
talking
in
about.
gaming.
Yes, yes, and so we're really looking forward to it. And they're in Spokane. Their factories in
Nice.
Spokane.
Hey,
They're
local.
Go.
So very excited about that. So yeah, that's very important about just that tactile thing and everything. So
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
looking forward to it.
Tactile and clear lines.
So neurodiversity in gaming.
Neurodiversity in gaming. That's what we're talking about today. I'm excited. I've been looking forward to this topic for some time just because it's such a loaded word now.
Yes.
Yeah, well, so the term originally was coined around 97, 99 and has just for autism spectrum initially, and then has kind of grown to include a wider range. The main premise is that neurodiversity is the diversity of human brains and minds, the infinite variation in neurocognitive functioning within our species. That's from neocosmopolitanism, or neurocosmopolitanism, excuse me. And neurodiversity is a biological fact, right? It's not
But
a
not
political
one that we all
belief.
cop to.
But, yeah, but,
We're
I mean,
different,
it's
it
not a
turns out.
political belief.
Yeah.
You have I have a cognitive neuroscience background, and there's a bell curve, and most of the neurosciences focus on the center area of the bell curve and ignore the outliers because they're trying to understand a baseline of function before we then start worrying about abnormal psychology, things like
And
that.
it probably is worth noting that
Part of
just like
science.
in a system as complicated as the human brain,
Yeah.
Yes.
it should be assumed that there is a fair degree of variety
Yes.
between different people.
Yes.
Exactly.
But the fact that some of this stuff has been written off as a sickness or an insanity in the past, it makes it worth talking about for me. Just,
Absolutely. No, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
like-
yes.
Yeah, and the primary goal is to change the language and discussion and social stigma from being a disorder, an illness to be cured, to language that which then triggers stigma, self-hatred, low self-esteem, etc.
Yes.
To change it to awareness of differences. Now, it's still important not to get rid of disability terminology just because there are legal reasons. If you're not able to, because of your neurodiversity in our current society where you live, you may need a disability diagnosis in order to get services from school to be able to function in
Yeah.
school.
Right.
So you don't want to erase that necessarily just because of practical reasons. However, in different cultures, in Japan and some of the Polynesian cultures and others, some of these neurodiversities are very celebrated that we would otherwise be institutionalizing. And so, it makes a big difference. Their quality of life scores and happiness scores, depression are much better
Yes.
than in a lot of our Western countries and such that treat it with so much stigma.
What do they stigmatize here that they celebrate there? Anything specific?
Well, so some of the mental health stuff and some of the, let's say, cognitive delay. So maybe you're functioning more at a 9-year-old level, even though you're 50 years old.
Right.
And in some parts of Japan, more in the countryside and such, or some of the other cultures, they will set up an environment in the village, if you will, where they can still have a part in society and do the level of functioning at the level they're functioning at, and not stigmatize it per se. Now, again, some of them, there might be other types of stigma, but it is interesting how where there is a support structure that provides functioning and support and shelter to help them still live within their capabilities, and sometimes some very creative stuff comes out in different ways because of how they see the world differently. If you watch the film, we've talked about it before, Spectrum, about autism, but especially synesthesia and all of the perceptive experiences. And they show a number of different artists, including martial arts, painting, poet, etc. They have very different experiences of the world than we do, and yet they're making great contributions. And some of them are getting the support they need to be able to do that. The one who's a poet can't verbally, is nonverbal, and has to type and has various muscle control issues and has to type in an interesting way, but writes this wonderful poetry out of India and such.
So can we just touch on really briefly what is included in
Right.
the neurodiversity
So
spectrum, so people aren't confused
Yes.
that we're
Yeah.
just talking about autism specifically?
Right, so it started with autism in the late 90s, but it has since expanded to include ADHD, developmental speech disorders, dyslexia, dyspraxia, that's motor skills, coordination, etc., dyscalculia, math and sequencing, dysnomia, so anomic aphasia, having trouble coming up with certain words and such and having to do workarounds to come up with it, various intellectual disabilities, Tourette syndrome, which isn't just like what people associate with bad words.
No.
It can just be
Tics.
yeah, just and they can expand
I
in
saw
various
that
ways.
South Park episode. I know what's up.
And now even some mental health conditions such as bipolarity, schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, antisocial personality disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, and others. I mean, there is, while bipolar usually can lead to a level of dysfunction that doesn't lead to productivity, there are famous people throughout history that probably were, the old term was manic depressive and such, but probably dealing with that, and also had some, when they were in exactly the right hypomanic functional level, incredible productivity and creativity and such, that when medicated, nothing, just wouldn't have come out, etc. But we have to weigh all the pros and cons of danger to self and others for challenges such as that. And also, it wasn't mentioned some of the immediate sources, but take into account synesthesia. So some people taste sound and hear colors and have and again, that's in the Spectrum film, it beautifully illustrated. And that has quite an effect, and it's something to keep in mind with gaming and such, which we'll get a little bit into more deeply here.
Yeah, well, so that's the thing that I think we want to focus on here is when you're running a game, or if you're a player in a game.
Yes.
I think we kind of talked about this.
We've touched on different pieces of this with accessibility and specific populations.
What can we do to make these games more welcoming?
Well, before we do that, let's normalize and personalize this a little bit first. And so, for example, RPGResearch, we hit, so 2 years ago we had 10 volunteers. We're now at 109, and we're projected to 1,000 in 2 years.
Yes.
But anyway, we have a really neurodiverse group of volunteers. We just about everything on that checklist, we've got somebody on that list there.
Yeah.
Personally, my mother had a brain injury back in 2007 that had some long-term consequences. My dad's been dealing with dementia and such. My eldest son, some neurodiversity. And I myself, ADHD and dysgraphia, dyscalculia, PTSD, bipolar. So those are all been things, and just want to, part of normalizing this is having the conversation that it's more ubiquitous than a lot of people realize.
Yeah.
How about some of you? Do you have some personal connections to
I
this? Because you were
have-
specifically asking to
Yeah,
cover this topic.
absolutely.
So I, from my personal perspective, I had a grandpa with dementia. I also have a couple of friends with their own personal not demons, but like personal things that they're dealing with that you have to take into account. Like especially if you're going somewhere, you want to hang out. I myself have a lot of various things like dysthymia, a lot of various things that go on in the background in my head, and I also know folks that are dyslexic as well. So a lot of these things, like people think that, hey, if you're labeled as something, that means that you're obviously quote unquote defective, but that isn't the case. Everybody has something that their mind just doesn't like, they just work differently, and everybody's mind works differently, and
And that should be like,
yeah.
that's expected.
Yeah, that is expected.
That's not weird.
It's not weird.
How about you, Christian? Because you specifically requested this topic.
Yeah,
last
well, I
time.
mean, it hits really close to home for me. I'm obsessive compulsive. I don't mind talking about that. I'm not going to go into details, but I count things. It's fine, and I don't medicate for it. I used to, and I don't now.
Yeah, I've been unmedicated bipolar since 03.
Because I'm not sick. And that's really what it comes down to. Like, I don't need to take medication just because I think differently than other people. It doesn't let me function any less. Yeah, I'm a little weird, but I'm not broken.
I think a lot of us at this table are a little bit weird.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Well, the key thing there is the 4 Ds, right? Distress, deviance is the least important, but danger, right, and dysfunction. And it's when things get extreme enough that they start to have the danger and dysfunction thing, that's where you need to figure out some kinds of intervention.
Yeah.
But instead of just approaching it as a medical model, start approaching it from the biopsychosocial model of a more holistic approach of, well, what can be done in the environment, if anything, to help maybe work with this rather than work against it.
Yeah.
And you can have a much better long-term outcome with that. One of the key things that's also come up, increasing data shows that things like ADHD, maybe even autism spectrum, and some of these others, previously being called disorders, but the neurodiversity movement's trying to get that disorder attitude taken out of it, and just more of the neurodiversity, is that many of these may actually be, because of the genetic aspect. Right now, brain injury and something that's a little bit different, but the genetic aspect usually means when you have such a high prevalence, there must have been something adaptive, at least from the evolutionary psychology perspective, for this to be as prevalent as it is. So ADHD ranges anywhere from 5 to 19% of the population. South America has like the largest number, and there's a lot of theories about that it's the immigrant gene, because the gene's related to that. There's a lot of different theories, and they're not all solid and proven yet.
Yeah.
But these discussions have only come up in just the last couple of decades. And so, for example, if you're very hyper-focused on a task, you might not hear the crack of the branches and such, that somebody, ADHD, it's the vigilance thing and easily distracted, will not get eaten by the lion, for example. Or it's you're more likely to go explore because you're bored with the area you're in, you need more stimulus for the DRD4 neurotransmitter gene, all that. So you're more likely to explore and find new resources before they're depleted in this area.
I think I feel like a lot of this stuff is simply adaptation.
Well, that's the argument. That's like, this for it to be a disorder to be this prevalent, because you wouldn't be able to keep spreading the genes if there wasn't some survivability to it, if it didn't help in some way. So one, just being quite blunt about it, one is the impulse control and having sex and such and not being careful could help propagate the genetic pool and such, and that can be adaptive in more primitive cultures originally.
So somebody in chat had a quick question.
Yeah.
Great.
They said that they have held back having their son tested because they weren't sure whether that label would help or hurt, and they were curious if there is any sort of like an online test, I guess might be hard, but if there's any resource they can go to help them determine whether that would be a good choice or not.
So self-diagnoses is really bad. It has a worse than 50%. Like, you're better off flipping a coin than self-diagnosing.
Okay.
Statistically, you're the worst diagnostician, and when it becomes your own kids and stuff, that's very difficult, and even with formal training. It is critical to find a good diagnostician to find out what strengths and weaknesses are. So for example, in Spokane, there's Neuroeducation, they're all PhDs and they're really good at doing a full assessment. It's pretty expensive, it's $2 to $4 grand, and it's scattered over several weeks. But you will then find out all of your strengths and weaknesses. So I went back when I was in my 30s and learned why I struggled with math and why my handwriting was so bad. Dysgraphia and dyscalculia. I didn't even know those were a thing and had struggled, and luckily technology, they let me use a typewriter in 6th grade because it was a mercy to everyone trying to read what I was writing, and technology saved me. So I adapted without knowing what it was, but it really helped then when I went back to university and such, and I was able to get permission to use it where some professors wouldn't let you use a keyboard. So no, for resources, it's really critical to get an accurate diagnosis. Yes, there can be insurance consequences as insurance and healthcare changes, but for example, with autism spectrum, the best long-term outcome is early intervention. I have worked with so many people on the spectrum, and the earlier the intervention, 2-3 years old, with speech, speech therapy, etc., anger management, the much more likely they're going to be able to mainstream and be self-supportive in adult life.
So, like in this particular case,
so
if you're a parent and you have the thought that that your child might be neurodiverse or kind of away, departing from the norm. Is it better to get tested? Like,
yes.
Presumably, if this person is deciding whether or not to, it's not an immediate problem.
Right, but usually they start to hit a wall around junior high onward if it's more subtle. Yes.
What about getting tested through the public school system?
Well,
because I think that's what the question has.
Well,
to
the
do
problem
with.
is the public. So, like for example, teachers and such are not legally allowed to do diagnoses, and the public school can refer you to a service that can do it, but they're not technically supposed to do diagnoses. They can say, "Hey, we think there might be an issue here. We recommend go to this person, etc." So, if it depends on what kind of funding, insurance you have, etc. But yes, if you think there's a problem, if it's worth doing it. Because then you can be prepared, and you're going to have a much better outcome long term, and potentially less dependent on medication. So the earlier intervention is usually skills development, whatever the skills development are, or adaptations that need to be made. The coping mechanisms need to be developed, and the earlier you get those, the better you're going to do in your adult life and such. So I would definitely say I understand about, and this is exactly what we're talking about. We're trying to destigmatize the label, but you do need to get the diagnosis. And it also means that, so for example, there was a principal who wouldn't let my son have a keyboard in elementary school. He was just totally hung up, so I had to go and get a diagnosis of his dysgraphia and such so he could use it, because he was having to stay in class through recess and everything else to finish his writing assignments and everything, and was in physical pain the whole time. And the principal just wouldn't, without paperwork, he would not give any resources. So you're going to want to do this, but it doesn't necessarily have to be through public services. You can always do private pay if you have the means.
Right.
And there are foundations and organizations that can help with that too. But yeah, you need to know. I mean, it's kind of like, well, I think I might have cancer, but I don't want to get diagnosed because of the label. No, you want to go get diagnosed, because then you got to make plans. But instead of approaching it as a necessarily disorder, depending on what you find out, use language with your child and loved one that is much more, okay, this is another variation in human diversity. Let's figure out how we can make this all fit and work in society and move forward, and use that kind of language.
All right. Now, we only have a few minutes left, and we do need to get to the gaming
Yes.
portion of this.
Yes.
So,
Not to hurry anyone along, I'm really enjoying this conversation.
You bet. Well, so if we give an example, a little bit of research. Kohei Kato is one of the best studies out there out of Japan.
Yes.
And actually, we have RPG conference coming up July 10th, 11th, and 12th in Spokane at East Washington University. He is slated to be a speaker there. We have to get an interpreter because he mostly doesn't speak much English. But he did a 14-week study with control groups and everything, 14-year-old autism spectrum, and the control groups using role-playing games. And we've got a link there that to some of his posters that are in English, showing how they went from, for example, would not initiate conversation. So initiate conversation on their own, 0%, to 50 to 60 to 80% by the end of 14 weeks. From making eye contact and interacting with others, 0 to 10% of the time, to 40, 50, 60, 70, 80% of the time. From feeling completely disconnected from friends and school and family. There was less of a huge boost there in school and family, but he wasn't really targeting that either. So more like 0.2 correlations, kind of small. But the others were like 0.4, 0.6 or better correlations.
And see, that's why I wanted to talk about this today, because I know it helps, and I've seen it help.
Oh, I've seen it hundreds of times. Yeah.
I've had people who couldn't look at you or talk directly at you,
Right.
And after just a few sessions, it became easier.
Yes, and there's tons of research about development of empathy and all these other things because the other roles. We did a program through Washington University that was a LARP for 2.5 to 5-year-old neurodiverse paired with neurotypical toddlers. And so they had to pair up and do these activities. And it was we were students at the time, and so everybody had all these different recreational activities to do. And the goal was keep them engaged for a full 15 minutes and complete the tasks. Out of half a dozen programs there, the LARP one was the only one that everybody was able to do the full 15 minutes because we connected with the story and narrative and all. Because we were doing similar activities. They were kind of obstacle courses with jump ropes and hoops and things like that, like some of the others were. But we tied it together with a story and a narrative so that they had to work together and carry the cards that represented the royal family, etc. And with the exception of only one participant who was the most profoundly on the spectrum, nonverbal, who did do the full 50 minutes but got to stacking the dice at the end. Everybody else completed it, and none of the other programs were able to get through the full 15 minutes and have full completion.
Well, I mean, we know the benefit that these things provide, but if we want these folks, if we want neurodiverse folks to join us at the gaming table,
yes, there's some barriers that need to be overcome.
What can we as gamers do to make that better?
Well, first of all, this is on the publishers and developers, game developers, which every week you're bringing out new ones here. So please, somebody, because we're doing it ourselves because nobody else is doing it, try to replicate the 1983 Frank Mentzer Red Box BECME Basic D&D, the 2 solo adventures to play, and the first GM adventure that walks you through step by step by step. There's too much dependence, we talked about before, on the mentor model. Now, for neurodiversity, sometimes you need a mentor to do this.
Yes.
But for those who maybe need to work up to it, having that solo approach. Now, Call of Cthulhu 7th edition does have a couple of solo adventures that teach you the game to play, but then when it comes time to GM, they fall back to the same old. You have to read the entire book. Some of the books are not readable because of the fonts, so please, we've talked over and over before about fonts, artwork in the background. Modiphius Star Trek Adventures with black pages with white text and gray text and low contrast.
I think you were here when we showed the alien.
Yes,
book.
exactly.
I love it. It looks
They're
gorgeous.
lovely. They are not accessible.
But so, let's say that a publisher says, this is the alien looks great. This is how an alien book would look.
Right.
Would having another version of the PDF that is totally not that? Would that be? Is that enough?
Yeah, that could make a big difference. Where if they just put it in a sans font, black text on white, maybe a larger font with no artwork behind it, makes that more accessible to a lot of people. Dyslexia and others, immediately more accessible. That's why we like BFRPG, because they give you the source files, and we're making an 18-point font version for low vision impairment, and then we're going to be working on a Braille version later as well to improve that. So they've made those source files available.
I guess one of the other questions on the being accessible to neurodiversity, what about for convention space wise? What little tiny steps that people can do if it's not maybe the room you can accommodate?
Yeah,
Is there
so in a room, one of the big problems for a lot of people with neurodiversity is high stimulus in a lot of conventions. So having smaller room spaces. So for example, we're hoping to bring the bus and trailer as our quiet rooms for gaming. So they're away from a hall of 4, 20, 100 tables. We've got a low stim, it's comfortable, it's quiet. You don't have all those distractions and overwhelm. We were running a program just a couple weeks ago at Spark Central. We had 2 full tables, 6 kids each. Every single one of them was diagnosed ADHD and or on the spectrum. We had our hands full. But one kid, unfortunately, who was new there, and we didn't know until he was there, literally had his head in his jacket like this because of the noise. And so we hurried and prepared the bus so he could go in there, and that's the whole point of having that, is he could have a private place, and he's coming back next week to be able to do that. So having these, there's the Dr. Raphael Boccamazzo's They have their quiet room programs they do for conventions. They don't do activities, but they give you a quiet space.
Yeah.
It's got the shield and sword. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name there. Sorry, Dr. B. But places like that, having those spaces available for neurodiverse people to still not just have a quiet space to go. We've got those now.
Yes.
Now we need places where the activities allow it in a lower stimulus environment or different controlled environments and such. So we're getting closer there. Some of the games that we've found to be helpful. So, for example, if you're dealing with some cognitive impairments, low reading level, but you still want to be able to get the benefits of role playing and the socialization, etc. No Thank You Evil is great.
Yeah.
I love No Thank
The
You.
tokens, they're big. They're geared for 5 years on up, so they can address a lot of these cognitive and other neurodiversity differences and still be able to get the benefit of the game. We have a volunteer right now who's training as a GM, and we're focusing just on he's an adult but third grade reading level and focusing on No Thank You Evil. That's what he's going to learn to GM, and that's accessible for him. And then we're hoping raise him up from there. Again, BFRPG, because it's free, you can tweak it, you can do all kinds of great things with that. For the others that struggle more with the socialization and appropriate behaviors to, adaptive behaviors to work in a group, the One Ring role-playing game is hands down the best we've found because it has clear behavior guidance rules.
You can get that in Humble Bundle this
Yes,
week.
exactly. It really
Bringing it
helps
back.
for those who struggle and need those clearly defined parameters to function better. It spells it out and says, this is through tokens and reinforcement. You want to do this, you want to avoid that.
So as one last thing before we have to take a break
Okay.
so we can reset for a new release rundown.
All right.
Yes.
What can we as players do to kind of make the table more welcoming to those folks?
So-
because we don't control publishing, we don't control
Sure, right.
Yeah.
releases.
So if you can have your table less cluttered, try to keep it a little more controlled. Character sheets. Have clean character sheets. Instead of everything crammed onto 1 or 2 pages, make it 5. Make it a portfolio of 5 pages. Everything's larger. I think I showed you last month the BFRPG
bindle,
accessible
yeah.
sheet and such. Very clear colors and shapes. If they struggle with reading, switch more to a little bit of iconography, but don't use photos. Those are too busy. But we use like different, squares, triangles, parallelograms, etc. Those are easy to identify, different colors. So symbols, if, for example, if they do have trouble with reading, maybe even if it's just from another language, like we're getting ready to run the international games table, and I'm trying to figure out this Portuguese skis game. But sometimes you have these icons and everything that can make it a lot easier and more adaptive.
Well, so like what are also just player behaviors? Like,
Turn taking,
Okay.
the talking stick is so critical. So whether we have a little egg timer that does it, or the dice tower, you pass it around and nobody talks except the GM and the person with the talking stick. So it reinforces that turn-taking behavior, and it works really well. It's a tangible that helps people.
If
really
someone
understand.
is having trouble with math, should you help them with that, or should you leave them the space to figure it out in their own
It's going
time?
to depend on what their attitude is about it. One way to help is use tokens, use tangibles rather than just physical. So a lot of games now are so simple, it's not like hundreds of items. So you can use poker chips or what have you if the game doesn't come with chips, and let them stack the hit points. Here's your 10 hit points. Take
yeah.
away hit points. How many
Yeah,
do you
like
have
that.
left? 7. Sometimes that can help them. Especially if they've got trouble even just writing and such.
Yeah.
Warhammer FRP was really good about that. It had all the little sliders and clicks and everything. And we're working on we've taken these wooden games with thumb wheels for the hit points and such. And I'm trying to make a prototype for 3D printed player character sheets that are all like clickers and sliders and things like that.
And just
such.
good old-fashioned patience.
Yes.
Yeah.
Being willing to listen when and
Compassion.
and let them take that time on their turn until they get the hang of it.
Yeah, dice towers. So people who have trouble shaking the dice, spastic muscles, the dice tower is great. Combine that with the turn taking. Foam dice. So sometimes the dice is overwhelmingly noisy.
Yes.
So use either a soft pad to catch the dice, or use foam dice. I mean, these are all things people don't keep in mind that are actually quite easy to take in to do.
Yeah.
I think that's probably where we'll have to end it this
Okay.
week.
Yes, unfortunately.
That's okay. We got, and then there's a list of accessibility.
But we literally have like 6
accessiblerpg.com,
more
et cetera.
pages to go through.
Yep, so as
That's
usual,
Yeah.
Hawke will be back next month
Next
Wonderful.
month.
Thank you.
to give us more. So I know a number of people in chat were very appreciative that we were having this discussion.
Yeah.
We're very thankful that you were on. So I just want to let people in chat know that as Hawke will be coming back fairly regularly. So if there's anything that folks in chat want to know about, like if there's a particular topic you would love to hear, a narrow topic that you would love to hear
please
Hawke
help. Please
go
be
into,
specific.
let us know.
Yes.
Post in chat or send us an email or something like that.
Twitter at us.
Like that question about should I have my kid tested? Give me specific questions like that. It'll be a lot better. And we are doing workshops now because of so much demand. So we're
Great.
1 to 3 day workshops for laypersons and professionals, including these topics.
And what's the website? If people want more?
rpgtherapy.com/workshops.
Great.
So check those out. And again, Hawke, thank you so much
you so
for
much.
talking.
Thank you.
It really is.
And for covering this topic.
Yes,
Gladly.
I know. And as you can see, like there's so much you can do, and every time Hawke comes in here, he only briefly touches the surface of the water.
RPGResearch.com, we
Yes.
have like 7,000 content items. You can just go down rabbit holes
I
forever.
highly recommend you check it out. And also, if you are a local here in the Washington area,
We need volunteers.
they need volunteers. So keep an eye on that.
And
but
Christian's getting on board with us too.
oh
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
Nice.
Gotta wait till I'm done
Nice.
filming now, but whatever.
But yes, my friends.
That was all set, and then scheduling.
Gosh darn you, being so popular and busy.
Like they really want you to
Whoa.
stick to that filming schedule.
Whoa,
It's the weirdest thing.
Whoa, you the coils of being famous. I know.
Oh yeah, that reminds me. I need to get out to my limo.
But yes, my friends, that was TableTakes today. But stick around because we are still going to have Javion here, or Javion with Mox Boarding House coming in. And thank you again to Caldera Studios for providing this lovely place for us to hang out, do all of our funky, goofy kind of things. But guys, we don't just have Friday shows. Let me go ahead and give you the plethora of what we have here. Mondays at 6 p.m. we got board games with the Brothers Murph. Wednesdays is a full lineup. 9 a.m. we got minis with the Brothers Murphs. And 4 p.m. we got Fireside with Emma and Peter Atkinson. Now they're talking about Dungeons and Dragons.
I think we need you to do theme songs for all of our shows.
Yeah.
Very good. All the theme songs. And then, of course, 6:30, we have the Westgate regulars. If you want to just see writers play D&D, have a good time, not allowed to jump on the tables, come in for that.
Because it's not Camelot in a silly place.
But, yeah, and also, as Gen Con is coming on, and as we have ticket sales being open, register, get all that stuff, we're going to have a lot more shows on Fridays after TableTakes and the new release rundown. They're going to be explaining the process of, hey, what do I do Gen Con? How do I do Gen Con? Why Gen Con?
Yeah, we've been learning that whole process for
Yeah.
the programs.
So if you guys want more information, just stick around on those days. So big important days,
We'll
Monday.
teach you how to Gen Con.
We teach you how to Gen Con. And I am Bonsai. We have Derek, Emma, Christian, and of course Hawke. Thank you guys so much for joining. See you.
Hold on. We have a couple more things to
Oh,
announce.
not quite done yet.
We do.
Don't worry. Quite done
I
yet.
forgot.
Hold on. So today at 2 p.m.,
2 p.m.
Mike and Kristen from Gen Con are going to come out to just talk through hotel registration.
Yes.
Because that opens up on Sunday.
But that's attendees,
My
not
bad.
event
Correct.
runners.
Correct.
Yeah.
So they're going to talk through that entire process. And then don't forget that all of our episodes from Twitch are on YouTube 24 hours or later. So if you've missed something, you can go there and check it out. And the really big news this week is that Fireside is now being released as a podcast. So every Friday at 10, which means right now, you can go download it.
Yep.
I was listening to it on the way here, actually, while stuck in traffic. You can listen to the week's episode from Fireside, which the current season is about the kind of behind-the-scenes look at 3rd edition D&D, when Peter kind of bought TSR and the development of the new edition.
It's like, remember when Peter kind of bought TSR?
Yep.
It's like, wow, we know that guy.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
So now you can put this in your earballs as
Yep.
well as in your eyeballs.
Same guy who bought Gen Con, right?
So podcasts, the new episode comes out every Friday, but every Monday at 10 a.m. we're releasing an episode of the previous season, which was covering the history of magic. So there'll be 2 each week. And that's the big new thing there.
That's pretty cool.
But yes, you can see us on YouTube, on the podcast, all that stuff. You know what? Follows are free. You can give us a thumbs up, all that stuff. Don't forget to comment down below, or just comment in general. We have a Twitter. You can comment at
Damn,
us.
Bonza, you sound like you have your own channel.
Maybe. But thank you guys. Don't go away. We still have new release rundown.
Should have started a minute ago.
Should have started a minute ago.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. Bye.